Hey, Deserving listeners. So a lot of you have been asking me to watch Sister Wives, and on the polls that I put on YouTube, Sister Wives will either be near the top of the list or at the top of the list regarding what y'all want me to watch. So I'm curious as to what all the hubbub is about. So I am going to watch the first episode. I understand that there are 18 seasons, but, got to start at the beginning. So let's see what happens.
My name is Cody Brown, and you've got to meet my family. I'm a polygamist, but we're not the polygamists you think you know. I have 3 awesome wives, Meri, Janelle, and Christine.
Okay, so I already got my Google Doc ready to go, taking notes. I got Cody, right? And Meri, Janelle, and Christine? Is that what let's rewind.
My name is Cody Brown, and you've got to meet my family. I'm a polygamist.
Wait, that's his whole family? I thought it was a wedding. Maybe it is, but that can't be their whole family. There's got to be cousins in it, but who knows, right? If you have 3 wives and lots of kids, which I assume they're Mormon, I don't know. That's probably prejudicial, so sorry about that. But anyway, if they're into polygamy, they're probably into lots of kids. Who knows? And if you have that many wives, and I don't know how old they look, so you could have a fair amount of kids, and then all those kids could have grown up and had their own kids. So yeah, there could be a lot of kids there. But, God bless.
But we're not the polygamists you think you know. I have 3 awesome wives, Meri, Janelle, and Christine.
Yeah, Meri, Janelle, and Christy. They all looked like the same woman. I'm sure you know the differences.
And I have 12 wonderful children. Well, my family's on the verge of a huge change.
Okay, so 12 children. They look like they're all non-adults. So looks like from little to teenage, 12 kids taking notes. I'm not taking notes while I'm recording because that'd be boring. It'd just be me going.
Because love should be multiplied, not divided.
Love should be multiplied, not divided. Okay, that's a interesting thing to say, interesting platitude. On one hand, you could see this as just a manifestation of polyamory, and maybe it is. But on the other hand, you could look at it as a traditional patriarchal cultish system that is brainwashing the women and everybody into complying with this ridiculous notion, and it keeps women out of power, right? But I don't know. I don't know which one it is. Maybe it's both. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that as we watch. I was going to say, looks like Utah. The thing is Utah is beautiful.
I like marriage.
Well, that's an understatement. I like marriage.
And I'm a repeat offender, so I have adopted a faith that embraces that lifestyle. In fact, it recommends it.
Right, that's my assumption. So some fundamentalist group of some sort, I'm guessing.
Okay, hi. How's it going?
So one of the things that I'm thinking about after making the deep dive about the Duggar family and the IBLP Christian organization, I am alerted to the possibility that, one, we might be watching something from the outside that from the inside is really quite toxic and brainwashing. But I don't know. Of course, I'm biased because I'm not in this group. So I have to check that bias. And number 2, that this show, mainly the cast members, but maybe even the producers, their motive for having a show like this is to create propaganda that makes their lifestyle, their fundamentalist religion, look good and inviting. Because when you watched the Duggar documentary, or the TV show, it would leave out the problems. that would be revealed later. So I'm keeping that in mind. Now, I'm guessing the producers, similar to the Duggar show, are making the show because it makes money. And they're not necessarily interested in religious propaganda. But maybe they are. I don't know. I'm thinking that they made shows like this. They started making shows like this because there was a market for TV shows that people would watch thinking, oh my God, what is going on there? And then you tune in and then you end up either sort of falling in love with the individuals and or you have this sense of inner conflict while you're watching where they seem nice, but also you're upset. I also wonder if the appeal of a show like this, this is just all just questions that I have, is that we still live in a patriarchal, sexist society, and these shows, when they exaggerate those issues, then it gives us a chance to yell at something that's more overt, when in our daily lives it might be happening in a more covert, subtle way. So that's a possibility. And also, if some of us have histories of having been harmed through sexism and misogyny, whether in the family or otherwise, then a show like this gives us those opportunities to have those feelings and maybe wrestle with those feelings, express those feelings, have a target for those feelings. And then as a group, we can use our mob bully ways to feel like we're getting some justice. And maybe it is healing. I don't know. Let me know what you think about these things. But these are all just questions I have as I'm starting this endeavor.
Ago, I married Meri, and then 17 years ago, I married Janelle, and then 16 years ago, I married Christine. I just fell in love, and then I fell in love again, and then I fell in love again. Meri and I have one child.
Okay, so I'm going to take notes on all this, Meri. And I'm not a fan of the kids being involved, as you know. I've done a deep dive on this topic. During the Duggar deep dive, I talked a lot about this. I went down a rabbit hole of looking at and thinking about the ethics and looking at the laws. And long story short, of course, when a child consents and signs on the dotted line that it's okay to film them on a reality TV show, all of us understand that children don't know what they're signing and they don't know what they're consenting to. In the same way that you can't ask a 5-year-old to sign over the proceeds of their work life. You know, that's a weird way of putting it. But if you asked a 5-year-old, it's like, look, I'm going to give you these 5 cookies. If you sign this contract saying that half of every dollar of all the money that you earn for the rest of your life, mommy is going to get that money. And the kids, okay. And we all understand that when a child signs a contract, they don't know what they're signing up for in some pretty obvious ways. And to consent to go on a show like this is a huge thing. You are agreeing to massive changes in your life and a lot of negative consequences. I mean, it could be argued that the adults don't even really know what they're consenting to, which I also will advocate for us to pass laws in our country, federal laws, so that in every state, even adults have advocates that are there. The way it would work, I think, would be that the law would force the production companies to allocate funds to pay for third-party lawyers and attorneys who are not working for the production company. Or maybe it would be there would be a certain amount of money set aside for the individuals to find their own attorneys, right? And then they find their attorneys, and then those attorneys advocate for them even before signing the contracts and work on the deals that they make, you know? And that children should be off the table, like just completely. They shouldn't even be referred to, really, because when the adults become popular, then inevitably people start Googling the children, and if the children have their own social media accounts, they get inundated. So there just needs to be protections. There's just, when I thought about all the pros and cons, I just didn't see any justification for risking these children's lives, literally. And there have been notable deaths by suicide because of the pressures. I mean, it's hard to know if reality TV or being on a YouTube family vlog is a factor in it. But, there have been some famous cases where families have harmed their children, that I went over in the deep dive with the Duggars. But yeah, I'm not a fan of that. So hopefully these kids are okay. But I'll take notes. So it's interesting. Meri, only one kid, but looks like there's a lot of kids with the other two wives.
15. Christine and I have 5 kids from 6 to 14 years old, with one more on the way.
We have 3 separate apartments in one big house, but they're all connected on the inside.
Okay, interesting. I remember watching that fictional TV show about a family like this, Big Love, right? And didn't he have like 3 different houses for but anyway, so they live in one big house and they have different apartments. Well, the women have different apartments, right? That's how it would work. Does the guy get his own? Anyway, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So I remember as a kid, the adults in my life would talk about how the older that they got, the faster that time moves by. And I even remember as a kid when I was like 10 years old thinking that when I was younger, time moved more slowly. Now, there are a few reasons for this phenomenon, but one of the reasons seems to be that the older we get, the more we fall into a routine and we stop really paying attention to our lives. Well, of course, therapy can be a wonderful place to slow things down and give us a chance to focus on things. Generally speaking, therapists are pretty good at creating a space for us to do that. And sometimes it seems like we need that outside influence to get us to slow down. Well, one place you can find a therapist is BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. So take a moment, visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
We're a fundamentalist Mormon family, not a LDS or Mormon family. They quit practicing polygamy 120 years ago. Big difference from us and them, similar to Catholics and Protestants.
Okay, interesting analogy there. I think that Catholics would beg to differ on that. But yeah, so he's saying fundamentalist Mormon family. Okay.
The right person comes along.
Yeah, you have to know that Janelle and I might have never married Cody. I mean, we wouldn't have married him on our own. It took Meri pulling some strings.
So the only analogy I have to this is in the polyamorous community, of which I have worked with as a therapist many times for a long time. There was a time when I was, I don't know if you know Alina Gabosh, she died tragically recently. She was a leader in Seattle in the polyamorous and the sex-positive culture community. She was, I believe, the executive director or the CEO of a local organization that was promoting sex-positive culture and also in charge of the Erotic Arts Festival here in Seattle. And she became the hub of all things polyamorous, I think in particular, but also kink. One of our very first episodes was going to, well, having her on the podcast, 1, and 2, we went to the sex club one night on the hottest day, I think, on record in Seattle, which isn't hot by, say, like Utah standards, I'm guessing, but it was very, very hot. And the issue was that we go to this sex club and there's dancing and there's no air conditioning. There's a big fan, but there's no AC. Because Seattle, at least in the past, there wasn't really a need. With the increase in temperatures, it's becoming more of a need anyway. And the people would, over the night would take off their clothes until everyone was naked. But me and Umberto were not really there to do that. And so we were all, buttoned up and, with sweaters on and full outfits and, but it was Anyway, my point is that I she asked me if she could include me in her Rolodex. I think it was literally a Rolodex of names of therapists that were poly-friendly, and I said, yeah, absolutely. She educated me and actually helped to change my paradigm about polyamory. And I started to get a lot of clients that were polyamorous, and I learned firsthand the complexities of it, but also the freedom and the glory of it, really. I'm not polyamorous. I have thought about it, I suppose, and realized that I'm monogamous oriented. And I do believe it is akin to a sexual orientation. There seem to be some people that just thrive in one or the other, and I believe I thrive in monogamy. Others might not. There's probably a spectrum, but that's the lens I'm seeing this through. And when I hear that Meri, the first wife, was the person who was the initiator of getting other wives, that contradicts, I think, what a lot of people would assume, right? You would think that Cody would be the one, because the way to see this through the simplistic cultural lens is that he's this douchebag who just wants to hump a lot of different people, a lot of different women, and wants to spread his seed through many different women, and wants to possess and da-da-da-da. And, that's certainly on the table. I'm not discarding that yet. But their narrative, anyway, is that Meri is the one that is, promoting that. And I think I saw, they're just sort of, this is an introduction, which is good because it's a lot of the overview. And I think from my notes here, I heard that Meri actually came from a polygamist family and Cody did not. It sounded like for Cody, he grew up in Wyoming in a non-polygamous family, and then his dad converted when Cody was 20. And then the dad, I think, started to engage in polygamy, and then he met Meri, and then Meri was the one, and I think Meri was, and I think maybe Cody even met Meri because of this new community that the dad was adopting. And then within that community, Cody naturally meets someone in there, Meri, and then marries her, and then she's the one that's more in that world of polygamy. And I want to be clear, it's not polyamory. Polyamory is a very different thing. It's related, I suppose, but not necessarily. I mean, there are well understood, there's a lot of stories and research and documentaries about this, and people who have emerged out of these cults who will say that although on the surface they were saying that they wanted to do this, they actually didn't really want to do that. People on both sides, both the husbands and the wives, will extract themselves and say, I never really wanted to do that. Because in a way, the cult aspect of it is that when you require this sort of thing, it consumes your life such that you don't really have time to think about what you want. And then the cult benefits because, I don't know if they're involved in a cult, but it's just on my mind, and I'm concerned about that. There's also a possibility, getting to the polyamory angle, that Meri is one of those people who was just polyamorous oriented. And most people would think, well, if you're poly-oriented, then it must mean that you want a lot of sexual and romantic partners. But there can be another angle to that where not only do you want that, but you might also, in lieu of that or in addition to that, want your partner to have other partners for a variety of reasons. One of which would be that you not only love having a husband, but you also love having a sister wife. I think that's what that's where that comes from. I'm assuming. I haven't heard that phrase yet, but that sister wife relationship is different than a friend or even a sister, because a sister wife is someone that you live with and raise your kids with and spend maybe more time with your sister wife than you would with your husband. And that relationship is really quite special and specific. And I'm seeing hints that the three of them are really quite close, maybe closer than any of them are with Cody. So that desire to have that kind of relationship, right? I mean, to think about the appeal, especially if you were raised in that environment, but, think about essentially living with your best friend. And it also sounds like Meri was the one that recruited. So she's the one like, I think I could be best friends with you. How about you marry my husband? And how about, how do I figure out how to make that happen? And that's contrary to the way it would look from the outside in a simplistic way, right? So now that's not polyamory, just wanting a friend, right? But it is related to poly in that it's open to having your partner have other partners. It might sound strange that someone would prefer to be one of many. I've seen this before. There are polycules, and often in the more, typical or the stereotypical polycule, you will have everyone with various different partners, right? And no one in the polycule only has one partner, or maybe one or two. But there's another configuration that I've worked with where you have one a woman, for example, and 4 husbands, and they all live in the same house in Seattle, and they have, some of them have kids with the one wife and some don't. And the men actually don't have other partners. They could if they wanted to, given the polyamorous credo or the ethic. But and by the way, sometimes even in poly, I won't go down that road. Point is that some people, regardless of gender, prefer to be one of many partners to somebody. In our culture, that sounds ridiculous because it is counter to everything that we know and have been trained to know about the proper way a monogamous, long-term committed relationship is supposed to look. Now, for me, that's the way I don't want to be one of many. And I don't want to be with many. And I don't want to get together with anyone else. And I don't want my wife to get together with anyone else. And that's okay. And that just means that I have to know that. And I have to be with someone that is okay with that and conducive to that. And we talk about it and work that out and work out the confines or the rules of our relationship so that we can get our needs met. And maybe either one of us might occasionally want to. I don't think that's true, but if it were, it wouldn't be worth the trouble or the hurt or the uncertainty or the whatever. So even if someone's in the spectrum somewhere, right, there's decisions that you have to make, right? There's calls you have to make, even on the poly side, right? Because on the poly side, people might want to be monogamous for a while, but that would disrupt everything such that would cause a lot of problems. So they have to, not that you can, anyway, point is that hearing Meri is the recruiter. I'm downloading that, taking notes, and I'm thinking about how this family is configured.
I mean, Cody by himself would have never done it. He's had Meri's back too.
Meri bonded with Janelle and Christine before it was a serious thought in my mind. Meri's the bait.
No, she said mergers and acquisitions is what he said. That's what he said.
I suppose another angle, and there could be many factors, I would imagine there would be, that Meri wanted underlings, so to speak. She might have seen that in her upbringing. This is all just speculative. That for Meri, she saw the first wife was really in charge of everything. You can imagine that being true, right? Because Cody is having to, go to different bedrooms and different families and stuff. And I think he leaves the house to work. I don't know if any of the women work outside the house, but I would imagine they would have to, right? How could they all live off his one income? What did he say? He's in advertising or something. What's he in? What did he say? Advertising sales. So he sells advertising, and you could make a good living doing that. And if you're in a rural area with the cost of living pretty low, then maybe, anyway. But maybe Meri might have been, in a somewhat problematic way, motivated by wanting underlings to boss around. It doesn't look that way, but it's just another possibility. All right, well, let's adjourn there. So I have some mail, some fan mail, and I thought I would conclude this episode by reading some of it. This is a postcard. It says Clinton, Iowa, and it's old-timey, and it is from Caitlin. Thank you so much for, let me read this here. It says that they call Clinton, Iowa, Stinktown because it smells bad. It reminds me of, in Seattle, we used to. Tacoma is near Seattle, and we would call it the Tacoma aroma, because when you would drive into Tacoma, the smell of a wood pulp mill plant where they take wood and make it into things, and sometimes that involves, like, I don't know why, but it would smell really bad. It doesn't smell anymore. I think they stopped doing that. But so I guess every region has its own stinky town. In the comments below, let me know what stink town is near you, or maybe you live in a stink town. That sucks. So thanks, Caitlin. Also a postcard from Iowa, again, also from Caitlin, talking about the eclipse photos that I posted. I'll read the full postcard later. Thanks for that, Caitlin. Nice to hear from you. And another postcard here from Noof. Thank you so much for this postcard. I'll read this later. A letter here from Sophia. Thank you for that. There's some stickers included. Thank you for that. I'll check this out later. Sophia. And a letter from Dre and Amy. It is a wedding invitation. Oh, my goodness. In Utah. Appropriate. A wedding in Utah. And so there's just a fun thing here. And then there looks like there's my name is Amy, and I've got a cute fiance named Dre. Thank you for that. Actually, looking at the calendar, I've already missed your wedding. So congratulations. Hopefully you both said I do. I don't know if I've been watching too much Love is Blind. But so congratulations or my condolences. And take care of yourself either way, because you deserve it. You really, really do.